It's another Monday. Are you able to share?
Yeah, I will.
Nice.
I may have to just copy some of this link.
So you are being recorded right now. So,
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and start introductions while you do that. So,
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Toyin Okwesomi, a family practitioner, HIV specialist, and I treat addictions in Maryland, USA. We're here this evening again as we come together every week to learn, to teach, and just to, improve our health by seeing how we can prevent disease entities from occurring. And sometimes we do talk about how we can actually tackle disease entities if they do occur. When we talk about disease entities, it spans a long or a wide area. And some of those areas include what we all know about our health, which could be physical, mental, emotional. We address all of those, financial. And today we're going to be talking about culture or torture. Our very own Dr. Kehinde Elisha will be our speaker tonight. She is the founder of NP Certification Academy and Special Education Academy, as well as Elishas Learning Institute. She is amazing. I can tell you this. She teaches nurse practitioners in different ways and at different levels, including helping them to pass their board certifications. The last I checked, her pass rate is 100%. I mean, how better can it get? So tonight we have the privilege to have Dr. Kehinde again. And if you were here last week, when she talked about schizophrenia, you know that she blew us off the water. So the floor is yours. Take it over. Welcome.
All right, Dr. O, thanks so much for having me on your platform. As always, you're going to pardon my voice today. I've been teaching all week, so my voice is fading away slowly. So I really hope I'm going to make myself clear this morning. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me, as always. So today we're going to be talking about something that bothers me, something that we tend to stay glued with and not try to look outside of the box, and that is the culture. I don't know, most of you must have heard, oh, he's Americanized, she's Americanized, or whatever. They find a way to tag or post some kind of culture on your face just to define you. But should we really define us? Should we really so much? Should we really hold on to it so much? If we look at diversity, it doesn't really mean what it is. So some cultural practices, are they really cultures or tortures? So we need to look at that and give our own opinion at the end of this presentation. So I really hope you're going to learn one or two things from this and begin to see culture on a different level. Speaking here is Dr. Kehinde Elisha, founder of NP Certification Academy. Look at the picture in front of me right now. That one sounds torturous already. That is supposed to be beauty. And that is even nothing. You're going to see a lot more. So what exactly is the purpose of this introduction, presentation? So the purpose is to explore some key considerations that lie at the intersection of cultural diversity and our real world, as well as its implication on our general well-being. Sometimes we negate our general well-being and capitalize and focus so much on culture, forgetting about the other implications that we may go through, like infection, like death. So there are benefits and there are downsides of various cultures across the globe, but we are here to educate and respect every beliefs too, and every practices. We're not here to put it down, but we are here to enlighten each other or one another. So where exactly did culture come from? Who started it? I did a lot of research, actually researching into culture. I used to like sociology. I had to tap back into that. So the truth is that culture as a conceptual framework is just for understanding other times and societies. In fact, it never existed until the 20th century. 20th. So that tells me it's a very recent term. So the term was it was used by an anthropologist, Edward B. Tyler, and that was in 1871. He wrote in his book, The Primitive Culture. That is the first place they ever borrowed the term. And then since then, people have given it different definitions. So how do we define culture? So according to Boston University research, culture is defined as the ways of life, including arts, beliefs, and institutions of population that are passed down from generation to generation. I'm putting that in red deliberately to make a point. That are passed down from generation to generation. I can say for sure, we do not have computers in the 1700s. So if we pass it down from then to now, how much does it really apply? So culture has been called the way of life for an entire society. As such, it includes what? Codes of manners, dress, language, religion, art. So, and according to the sociologists, sociology.org, they define culture as rules and laws, which are passed down again from one generation to the next. Now, that's my point. That's my point. So this is a basic definition from which culture can be explained theoretically. But to define a culture more precisely, we have to classify and name its basic element. More precisely, we have to classify its basic element. Another scholar defined it exactly. We are passing some hereditary, some ways of life from one generation to the next. So culture is shared characteristics of a group of people, which encompasses what? Place of birth, religion, language, cuisine, social behaviors, art, literature, and so on and so forth. So what other basic terms should we really dissect as we go through this presentation today? Let's talk about the term Americanized. What exactly is it? Adopted or altered to have or confirm to typically American characteristics. In every culture, we have the good and we have the bad. So what does that tell me? So we definitely need to not put down any culture per se, whether African, whether American, Indian, or whatever. In every culture, there is an element of good, and we must buy that. And in every culture too, there are some really terrible elements that we are ashamed to even talk about. So now, what are the basic elements of culture? Language, norms, beliefs, symbols, values, cognitive elements. These are the basic elements of culture. Now, what exactly is a language? Language is just language, just the manner in which we communicate, the way we talk, the way we interact. What are norms? Norms are defined, as things that we, like rules and regulations of the society. It is normal for me to walk outside barefoot. It is not normal for some people to walk outside barefooted. So it is just whatever is normal to you does not have to be normal to me. And as we grow through life too, we create our own culture within ourselves. We are now saying, I believe in this, I don't believe in this. We're trying to now redefine it. Now, I want the society to look deeper and then dig deeper and be able to search their soul and know what is good and what is not good. At the end of the day, as we look into culture, we need to be able to pick what is human and what is not human. That is the point. Now, we need to be able to differentiate, we need to be able to set apart what is human and not human when it comes to the definition of culture. The definition of culture is the values and norms that we are passing from generation to generation. So even if it is not human, are we going to keep passing it on? That is the question. So what is the beliefs now? Beliefs is the creation of any culture by a society. Society will decide their source of motivation, which they considered as appropriate. And I have some examples there, which I'm not going to go to. Symbols. Symbols can be, Christian symbol is different. The Hindu symbol is different. We have the cross. Some people believe in it. The Hindus have their own, the Muslims have their own. What about values? Some values are explained by the society. Some people will say, oh, he has no value. She has no value. Well, what is your value and how do you define value? So the value is literally, is pretty much how we perceive it, depending on how the culture defines it. But how do you define values on your own? So some values are explained by society. In this way, values of a particular society will get accumulated and move forward from generation to generation. So cognitive element is just the way we think about it. That is the thought. Existing situation that goes from natural to natural, just the natural way of life. So key features of culture that we're going to really grab some out of it. Okay, this is maybe passing it down now from generation to generation. We have now come up with 8 key features. Culture is learned. I agree. Culture is social. Culture is shared. Culture is transmitted. Culture is continuous. Culture is accumulative. Culture is integrate. Culture is changing, and culture varies from society to society, and we must respect it. So before we get, so there's some good stuff that we're about to start seeing. So before we get there, let's remind ourselves about the importance of wellness. Is culture even part of it? Now, as we carry, culture so much on top of our head, are we negating the other part of wellness? We shouldn't. I think we should prioritize that. I'm sorry for putting my feelings in here. We should prioritize wellness over culture. Period. So what exactly are the 9 dimensions of wellness? Spiritual, physical, emotional, social, environmental, creative, career, finance, and intellectual. So the 9 dimensions of wellness, somewhere within the puzzle, I'm sure culture is going to fit. But if we are balanced in one area, let me say spiritually, I'm 90%. And the rest, I have 10%. I am not well. Okay? Similarly, career-wise, if I'm 90% and 10%, I'm the rest. I am not balanced. I am not well. Similarly, environment, if I am 90% and the rest, 10%, is still imbalanced. So we need to be able to balance life. We need to be able to balance culture. We can't put culture on top of everything else. So let's look at the bad and the ugly. That was just my intro. Do we have any questions before I proceed? If we don't, may I? So look, culture across lifespan. Let's start from babies to adulthood and general. I wanted to expand on this, but I'm afraid we're going to be here for 2 days. So I had to keep it on one slide. So look, babies. How did we used to feed babies? The way we fed babies was kind of ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like people that doesn't want to eat, we kind of lay them down on the side, we block their nose. Pathophysiologically, that is death in a way. Baby that we block in the nose so that the baby can open their mouth to eat, or the way we take care of babies and so on. You will see some images as I go on. What about adults? Adults, I will separate into men and women. Men, culture will describe and say, don't talk. You got to man up. Meanwhile, men, we get depressed too. The strain, the pressure. on them. It's not making them come out like they should, and therefore is affecting their life in general. Their outlook of life is different too, because they have already been stereotyped that they are not supposed to express, they're supposed to man up. That is the most cultures. What about women? Women also don't talk. Keep it to yourself. Again, don't talk. Keep it to yourself. Then what is the purpose of psychotherapy? It is called talk therapy. You are to talk and express. We are created that way. We are created for one another. The culture in general also describe it that, okay, if you talk too much, it's a problem. We're going to tag you. We're going to name you. We're going to bully you if you tell. What about the geriatrics? How does the culture see them, especially in some of the developing worlds? They go out at night talking to themselves. They're going to see it as maybe witchcraft. They think, and plus maybe they have Alzheimer's, unfortunately. Like in general now, culture and cultural practices, not just in Africa, across the board. You have people working for you. Let me say nanny. Nanny was the best example I could think of. How do they get treated? You know, how does the culture see them? Second class, third class citizens? What about the lunatics, unfortunately? People with schizophrenia, as discussed last week. How does the culture see them? And this keeps getting passed on and on and on. You are a nanny, there is a way you get looked at, there is a way you get pushed over. You have a mental health problem, there is a way you get pushed over because of the way the culture has always seen it. I put up some videos about how they still chain down some lunatics, unfortunately on the legs, especially in the developing world. And it really broke my heart. I actually took that video down because I don't want to be playing such. So what about culture and beauty? The pressure on women. You have to look certain way. We're not thinking about it. All the reasons why that woman can't really take care of herself. Other things that might have affected her self-care. Or even a man that is looking haggard. We are not thinking about the reason why they are looking the way they are. The culture, the way we so get stuck, get so engrossed with it. What about spiritual practices? That one is even bad, okay? Of course, that is also part of the elements of culture too, so we can't leave it out. Where some people, they will go to the river, some really, really dirty, nasty river. They will say when they bury themselves in there, their problem is gone. In some kind of nasty lagoon. All right, so now, let's start with the baby that I started with. What has a little thread got to do with a hiccup? This is reality. In the past, we think, okay, baby's having a hiccup. Let's go ahead and put a little thread on top of the baby's head. The hiccup is going to go away. It is, when we look at the pathophysiology of hiccup these days, it has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with a thread. Researchers still cannot find the correlation between a hiccup and this little thread on this baby's head. Thank God for science. What about this one right here? Baby stuffy nose. Check it out, how we clean it up.
Hello, family. Welcome back to our channel. You're highly welcome. I'm Priska. His mouth. I got a request. Someone requested that I should make a video of how to clear baby's nose. Okay, he said, I think he said African way, right? Let me check. Do we have one particular method? Do we have a it's like back home. I do see some mom, they suck their baby's nose with their mouth. Yes. They will just put their mouth and suck, and they spit out. They suck and they spit out until the baby's nose is cleared. Yes, I think I do see them back home. But for now, I think not sucker. They are using not sucker. They don't use that method again. It's outdated. I think that method is outdated now. They don't do it anymore. Or do they do it? Let me see know in the comment section.
Okay, so she went later in the video and did it.
They're still doing
But
it.
I have the little image right here. And you see that picture right there? Whatever is in her mouth at the time that she's sucking the baby's nose with it, she doesn't care. That is culture. That is a traditional practice that went on for years because I remember seeing it. I remember seeing it. In fact, some people still do it, even here in America. Am I saying it doesn't work? No. But I'm saying we have advanced beyond this. We can actually hurt that baby more. Okay. That is one of the examples. Okay. The grandma's case that I said, if she's found on the street at night talking to herself, or thinks she may have Alzheimer's, mumbling to herself, she can potentially be stoned to death. So is it culture or torture? When husband dies, they're going to have the women sit around the house for 40 days, if I'm exactly correct. Whether they have a pre-existing blood clot condition or not, nobody knows health-wise, but they sit down there and they say that's a form of mourning. Culture or torture. When a woman is, when a woman is generally subdued, regardless of, actually, I'm not even going to go to that concept of women. The culture of women right now is still bad in a lot of developing worlds. Now, I talked about this at the beginning briefly. This is supposed to be a beauty to please our husband. Or some people, single girls, they do this in order to look beautiful, for them to get married. So the Sahara people will do it, the people from Chad, people from Tanzania, Mozambique, they will still do it. This is another lip plate. This is considered beauty. This is happening right now in 2023. Similarly, this is considered beauty, true life story right here, guys. It is happening at the moment. And the worst thing that actually broke my heart, this is called female genital cutting. I'm sure we have a term for it, but I didn't get there. There's a video, but I don't want to go that far. But anyway, female genital cutting is female genital cutting. So why do they do this? Right now, they are still advocating in Uganda that they should stop doing it. But some women, some innocent girls still have to go through this because they believe they will not be sleeping around with men. They will not, you know what I'm saying? Like all those old ways of thinking. That is that right there. What about the other countries? What do we really see as a torture? I mean, it could be a culture, but can it be a torture too? Absolutely. If I have to cut my finger because somebody died, in order to mourn them or to respect them, that is some pure torture because I can get infected and die too and go join them ASAP. So this happens in Dani tribe. Where is Dani tribe? Dani tribe is in Indonesia. What about baby tossing? This is real, up until date, okay? Some rituals, some cultural practices still happen, and nobody can do anything about it because it's been passed down from generation to generation. The baby tossing in India, for good luck. Imagine, for good luck. This still happens. Hopefully that baby get cut down there. I don't know. I don't know. Can you imagine the height? Looking at this picture, I didn't really research into okay, they said 50 foot. It was specified. So that is insane, I think. But anyways, I don't want to be judgmental, but it is deep. Now, this one right here, I have a New York Times video about the culture of the treatment of the mentally ill. It is bad. It is bad. That is the culture that I look forward to some kind of change. I don't even care how small it is. Hopefully, we can start taking baby steps to make sure there is a change. Let's now talk about one of the elements of culture. That is spirituality. And I'm sorry, I'm not picking on Christianity, but that is a religion I'm very much familiar with. And I do know there are some pastors, and I got a bunch of videos. We cannot potentially watch everything, but let's go ahead and watch some of them. And at least this one right here. Let's take a look.
Hey guys, I'm me.
And I'm Mike.
And you know who we are already. So on this episode, we are going to be highlighting some of the craziest...
Crazy is an understatement. Borderline insanity moments in African history of, churches.
Yeah. So we have no proof or whether these things are real or fake or what.
According to the pastors, they are real.
Disclaimer.
This does not show our religious beliefs by any means necessary.
We don't mean to offend anyone.
We don't mean to even come at your religion.
We're just highlighting some crazy work.
Through my legs. When I'm walking on the streets.
When you look at my foot, you get into my kingdom. Everybody else does initiation. I like it. English is spirit of. It's not
This is
like
the one.
any other lake water you may have seen. It is thoroughly dirty and its smell is overpowering.
Oh gosh. The mystery lake. How can you now jump into the water or filled with all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of shit and doodle and everything, and believe that it will free you of your sins? I mean, why would you go and jump into the water filled with filth and think it will free you of what?
That's
Her
pregnant.
stomach is being pressed, and she's wondering, why did I ever? Didn't K.E.L.I make me come to this church? I don't know. I think he's killing my baby. Smart buncomic hands of the anointed food keeps on kicking her stomach, assuming that he is in opposites going to actually acquire this miracle for this woman.
I want to go. I don't have the spirit to go again because you don't have the spirit to go again. In the mighty name of Jesus.
Okay, there are many spiritual devices.
Okay,
Then you think the
so
pastor?
those are the little ones I wanted to
you.
show. I can't really say everything, but I found some cultural practices even within Christianity that I cannot go into details about. Okay, I try not to be the one to present that because I don't want to speak on the controversy, but that is real. So now, in a nutshell, what are the advantages and disadvantages of cultural diversity? We use that concept a lot. Does it have benefits? Does it have downsides? So the benefit, it permits for increased creativity, of course. Creativity can lead to better problem solving, more alternatives, better solutions. Groups can become more effective and of course, more productive. Now, what about the downside? Lack of cohesion, mistrust, stereotyping. I don't like your culture, you don't like my culture is the best. So we go through all this when it comes to diversity. Lack of cohesion, inability to take concerted action. Groups can become less effective and less efficient. That is pretty much one of the, we can generalize it to all kinds of culture out there. So that is kind of the main things I wanted to point out about culture. I don't want to talk about relationship culture, and I'm sorry, I'm going to mention that maybe gays and the lesbians. That is a culture that I would have loved to address too, but there's a little bit of controversial issue there, so I don't want to go into that. But I would like to mention that though, some people generally, and I know some people asked me this when I was doing that am I going to talk about it? Some people are truly born that way, and that's the best I can say. But the people that are not born that way, like some men, they will look like a man, and of course, they will have the women organ, or the women, they have the male organ. So that is a different story, and that's the only one I can speak to. I don't have enough knowledge or skill to speak about the rest. So that is pretty much my my presentation today. I'm not going to take you deeper to the horrifying videos. I'm just going to allow for questions right here. If anybody have questions, that is the end of my presentation for tonight. Kindly raise your hand. Okay, that's you. So if anybody have any question, please, I am so open, and thanks so much for listening tonight.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Elisha. That was fantastic. Thank you. So if you put down the slides, I will be able to maybe view better as people raise their hands. Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Ajagbe, kindly unmute, sir, and ask your question.
I'm unmuted anyway. Thank you very much,
Hey.
Dr. Elisha.
Thank you, sir.
One of the questions that comes to mind when we talk about culture is the question that addresses, the question about when does life begin? That's one major question that is culturally motivated, and we want to address something about that. When does life begin?
When does life begin? That's deep. Maybe Dr. Ho can help me with that. Dr. Ho?
No, I'm saying from the cultural standpoint.
When does life begin?
Mm-hmm.
From the cultural standpoint?
Right. So
Well, from the non-cultural
culture-
standpoint, life begins at inception.
Conception, right? As soon as you're born.
Yes. No, well, no, life begins
When you're pregnant.
no, when the sperm fertilizes the egg, you have life right there. That's when life begins. But as far as culturally, I believe it would begin when somebody or a child begins to know their surroundings, relate to it, learn language. Before then, they have no concept of anything.
That's good. Thank you for helping me out on that.
Well, this is a question that I taught for many years in embryology, because culturally and politically, religiously, there are many views on when life begins. So the question is, when does life begin? And if you look at it culturally, the answer will be based on their belief on, what is life in the first place. So my approach to it, which I taught for many years, is that life does not begin at conception or fertilization. Life does not begin there. Life is transcendent of time. Now look at it. 2 dead people cannot procreate. If you take a dead sperm and a dead egg and you mix them together, they will never form a baby. So you need life to pass from one generation to the next. And it has to pass, the identity of an individual starts as conception, but it's not life that starts at conception. So biologically, if there was a dead sperm and a dead egg, there would not be life. If there was a dead sperm and a live egg, there would never be a life. I mean, there will never be a developing fetus. So we have to bear that in mind. And I think culturally, that is not being taught through. The people just say, for instance, if they're talking about, in some cultures, about, marriage and what happens between husband and wife or whatever, in terms of procreation, they do all kinds of rituals. Some rituals that they do, you wonder, how does that really determine the understanding of when life begins? So I just believe that there are so many cultures, the cultural diversity hasn't really, defined, when life begins. Now, what Dr. O was alluding to, I'm not talking it has to do with the child or the individual becoming identified with a culture. That's not what the question was about. The question was just, when does life begin in terms of when somebody says, oh yeah, I have a baby. Some people will say, well, the baby wasn't an individual until the baby was born, for instance. But
So Dr. Ajagbe,
She was
please,
trying to link it to
just
culture.
so we come back on topic. The topic tonight is on culture. And actually, when I was going to answer that question, you were specific. You said, when does life begin as far as culture is concerned? Dr. Elisha, was that what I heard?
Yeah, and I saw that you linked to culture too.
Yes. So I will repeat. As far as culture is concerned, as you asked originally, I believe life begins when the child can understand A from B, truth from falsehood, and what the culture is around the child. As far as life life begins at conception. Ultrasound help us know that. A lot of us on this platform are scientists, and know that life begins at conception. So when you're talking about dead sperm and dead egg, why would anyone want dead dead to come together. A dead person does not procreate. A dead person is gone. I just went to my mother's funeral and she was gone. You know, she wasn't going to be able to make love to anyone. So you can't even harvest an egg anymore. So I don't know why we're talking about dead eggs and dead sperm, but culturally, that is the topic tonight. If you don't understand, you're not old enough to understand, you cannot learn culture. So, Ms. Tammy Taylor, but thank you so much for your question, sir, and the confusion too.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Thank you. Dr. Ho, I'm so excited to be here. I've been missing, but my auntie told me about this, and I said I won't miss today. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
And so my question is, I know Dr. Elisha, Dr. A, right? Sorry.
Elisha, yes.
Yeah, I know she doesn't really want to talk about this, but it's about the lesbian, gay.
Somebody asked me that. Somebody asked me that privately. Somebody did.
I know,
okay.
but
We'll try. We're gonna try. Dr. Ho is here.
yeah. As a scientist, I still can't wrap my head about what's going on and the fact that they are trying to enforce this craziness upon us. You know, so when you said some people are born that way. So the question, are there really people born that way? And how do you link LGBT to culture?
Okay. Excellent. So that's a culture on its own, right? A societal norm that falls under the element of a culture. So it is now norm, right? So what I'm trying to say, when I say some people are born that way, it's actually called something. And I need to clarify that there is a particular term for it, and I will get that across to you before the end of the meeting. They have, like, for example, female looks. Does it make sense? Or male looks, and they truly have the opposite sex organ. It is totally true. That is real. Okay. Like, they have the women, but I don't know if anybody has ever seen that.
Hermaphrodite?
Well,
thank you.
No, hermaphrodite is different.
That's what I was trying to refer to.
No, hermaphrodites have both sex organs. That's a malformation. That's something.
It's malformation, correct.
No, but that is different.
But they will pick one, but they have to pick one out of those sex organs, right?
Yes, but that has nothing to do. Oh, that's what you were saying.
That's the one I said I can speak to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I said I can speak to. So that is not whether I'm normalizing or not normalizing it for in either case. I will reserve my comment again on that because we're in the United States of America and gay and lesbian is legalized. So I respect that culture.
So I'm going to say something about it. You know, I remember when I brought, when we had a session on gays, lesbians, and bisexuals, I know that some people were like, oh my gosh, you don't want to touch that subject and you don't want to do that. Yes, we want to touch it because it's the life we're living in, is the world we're in. And Temi, what I'm going to say is that it is a culture now. I mean, when you talk about the Black culture, the white culture, the Asian culture, what have you culture. It is possible to also talk about the gay, lesbians, queers, bisexual culture. And that's another topic. If you go on Medical Mondays with Dr. O and go to past episodes, you will get, you will be able to, maybe learn a lot more on that. Because there were people who actually identify in each ways that were brought on the program so that we can understand it more.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, my dear. So, Brother Chris Paul Otagie, all the way from Nigeria. So it's like, what time over there now? Kindly unmute. Thank you.
This is about 12:50 a.m. now in Nigeria.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank
you for participating every week. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. And it's an opportunity to have heard Dr. Kehinde Elisha again.
Thank you.
Last week was explosive, as she said. I must confess, I thought I could speak a bit of English, but last week I discovered that Wiri in Nigeria is actually a schizophrenic disease, correct?
Correct.
So we used to say insane, mad and all that. But schizophrenia is a proper medical term.
Yes, sir.
But from today's topic, cultural torture, while you were speaking, something came to my mind. I said, perhaps we need to also interrogate the influences that created this culture.
Correct.
Sometimes it could be weather, sometimes it could be, for instance, it could be politics or whatever. For instance, what comes to my mind is, for instance, in Ibadan, this car, I said this car now, the marks. The Ibadan mark, for instance, which I learned at some point, was to identify the people, during a war situation or something like that. And it has become, a norm or culture for those people. And I also think of the Arabians who have to tie this thing all over their neck, their nose,
Even
and all that.
in the summer.
Because they live in the desert or something. So, and today we are actually beginning to see the trend that the world is taking today, the fast trend as facilitated by technology. We can begin to actually see why and how culture are produced. For instance, today the kid grows up with a phone, and phone itself has created its own culture. And I can envisage maybe in the next 20 years, some of these old ones that we grew up with will just fade away. And we'll be talking another generation of cultural practices, which will be technology-based or technology-driven, all of those things. Because the way we relate with ourselves today is quite different from the last time. I remember in Nigeria, before we got the GSM or the phone today, everybody will go and line up at Lagos Island, where is that place, to make an international call. But today we can just do that from, the comfort of our bedroom or wherever. And here we are talking. This was like imagination to a lot of us when we were growing up. I imagine that one day I'll be able to talk to somebody, across the world and all that. So I want to ask, do these influences have a place in determining, the creation of culture and their sustainability? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful question. And I think you were not really asking a question, you're actually sharing even more knowledge. You're actually sharing more knowledge, and I really, really appreciate that. So definitely, you're right about the trend. We are seeing some changes, a lot of changes. Many people, for example, we're now aware of Alzheimer's and dementia. Honestly, it used to happen. Unfortunately, in the villages, they used to be considered witchcraft. And of course, I'm also hearing so many changes now about people are now seeing the mentally ill as different. So of course, yeah, the culture is slowly going to change. I think we are moving towards that direction. And eventually, I think culture is going to end up being individualized. What do you see as culture? So eventually, what looks pleasant, what looks human to you, that is the way you're going to define it. And that is the way we are seeing this generation now. If you look around, how many kids write? If I fuss about my kids, oh, look at your handwriting, and be like, okay, well, we type in school. You know what I'm saying? That's the culture that is changing right there. No one fusses about handwriting anymore. So eventually, I think we are moving towards the direction that all those, archaic practices without any backing, I think it's slowly, hopefully going to fade away.
You talked about the individualization. How do you mean?
Individualization as in you, your own self. It's just like you, your own self, the difference between what is right and what is wrong. and you will maintain your stance, and you're going to advocate for what is right rather than following what is being passed down from generation to generation. I think that was the main killer. And that was my emphasis for today's topic, that we are following what is being passed down from some people are saying discouraging the use of left hand. That's cute. But anyway, those practices that we have, even that one is a pain. Don't be torturing a kid for using a left hand. That's the way the kid was, that's just natural. That's nature for the kid. That can actually ruin the kid when we discourage that kid. Sorry for digressing. I was responding to the chat. So the key concept today about the definition of culture, we must not forget. There are ideas and values that we are passing down from generation to generation, regardless of its consequence. Like throwing baby 50 feet down for good luck, and they still do it. Like cutting a woman's clitoris so she doesn't sleep around with men. They are now having to advocate that in Uganda. They're having to stop it. And some people still do it. All those cultural practices. If you are a medical provider, for example, now they bring in a girl to you and say, hey, can you help me do this to this girl because I don't want her to sleep around? Because now you are enlightened, right? You know what is best. So you will now individualize your own culture by saying, you know what? I know they have done this for the past 40, 50, 60 years, but I say no to this. I am not going to do it. Now you have individualized it. You have personalized it. You chose life rather than death. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Dr. Izugu has his hand raised, so I cannot comment on that yet. I'm going to let him go first. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my comment is just to be very brief. Elisha, thanks for that presentation.
You're welcome, sir.
I see culture as a dynamic process.
Correct.
I don't believe there's anything, not even in our own individual bodies or a place or time, that is static. And so it is really a problem to see culture as being static. It, as part of what is on this earth, is a dynamic process, and we have to work on it in that dynamic process, and providing what we believe or what we have learned as being what is ethically right. So that's all my comment on that.
Thanks so much for that comment, and I love it. And I'm going to quickly add to that. If I love it, the dynamic part, I would choose dynamic because dynamic is flexible. I love flexibility. Now, when we talk about static, why don't we ride a camel to work? Why don't we ride a camel to church? Why don't we, do those things that they did 50, 60 years ago? Why are we using cell phones now? Does it make sense? So we can't do it in one area and not do it in others. We have to also adjust other areas accordingly, not completely negating culture, because some beautiful cultures are there too. For example, I'm in a train, I see an elderly person standing and holding a pole, and I'm sitting in a chair. It is cultural that I get up for that elderly, and then they take my seat. That is now a different aspect of culture. Does it make sense? So now I see a kid now using their left hand. 10, 20, 40 years ago, they would beat the child with a spoon or something. Stop using that left hand, use your right hand. President Obama uses his left hand, and he is a president. He was a president and he succeeded. So my point is that is where we begin to see the changes that, so it really doesn't matter to use the left hand. Now, that we also have a different dynamic. You using a left hand to hand something over to an elderly person, that will have to be individualized too. Personally, I don't take it personal, but some people in Africa too, it is personal. But what if my dominant hand is the left hand? Why do you have to torture me over that? So I love the dynamic aspect of things. Thanks so much for that addition, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Jagbe, you have your hand raised, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to say, could we apply the word evolution to culture? That is an evolution. It keeps evolving. It's like the Dr. Izugu said, it's not static. So it constantly evolves. Is that an appropriate classification or qualification for culture?
I would take that too. I would take that too as evolve. It is not static. I think it's from generation to generation. What we consider normal right now, it wasn't normal 30 years ago. So it's evolving. What we consider normal now, in the next 20 years, it's going to be old school. It's going to be archaic. My kids right now, they call me old school on some things already. So they are creating their own culture too. You see what I'm saying? Right now, they will call me old school for not letting them have dreadlocks. And I'm like, no way, not in this house. In the next 10 years, I will not be able to say that outside. I will look, even right now, I will look backward to say that because I see people play basketball, soccer, leaving their hair tall, wearing dreadlocks. If you open your mouth in public and say, oh no, that's the women's hair, people will look at you like, okay, which planet are you from? So because of all those stereotypes too, we can see it evolving. We slowly see it evolving, and we may slowly slide into it too, even unconsciously. You see what I'm saying? You won't even know when you buy it. For example, how did we talk about the LGBT community? I'm not going to present them in a bad way, but I'm going to say, how did we see them 10 years ago? How do we see them right now? We have evolved. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to talk about, same culture, but something a little bit different. But before I do that, I saw that Dr. Booker raised her hand at one point. Dr. Booker, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, just a few comments. I think what she was alluding to about the sexual thing, there is a term called intersex, and it was researched by this professor at Ibadan. So it depends on, like for instance, the culture, you want a son, but the guy is genetically female. He may have a bigger clitoris because of hormones. So he's raised as a boy so there's sex, biological sex, and sex of rearing. And that has been around when I was a medical student in the 70s in Nigeria. And then I also, thank you very much for the lecture.
Thanks for bringing that up, by the way, Ms. Morris. Sorry for
right. And I think his name was Dr. What is this? A Mac or something. But if you research, it's called intersex, and there's a lot of information on it.
Yeah, if I have to actually present it next time, I can present it next time. I actually work in an operating department. I work in post-anesthesia care units. I'm not going to talk about it. It's here in DC though. And I actually dealt with that. I worked with people like that. So I saw that. Does it make sense? But I've never openly talked about it. And I was thinking it was common. That's why just glazed over that's okay. Some people were born with it.
It's not common.
Why I glazed over that.
No, it's not common.
I didn't know it was not common, but I saw it a lot.
And the problem with also the cutting the clitoris and just to prevent them from being promiscuous. And the first time I saw it as a medical student, which was very sad, they clipped and the child went into renal obstruction and almost kidney failure. So it has a yes, the baby was about 6 months. Yes. So because they sewed up the urethra when they were sewing. I mean, I know all the horrors of the 70s. Right in loose. Okay, that was my contribution, and that is culture. So I don't want to talk about that.
No, it's some horrific things. I had to cut off a lot. I was going to talk about harbor drugs and how people lost their kidneys to something we call agbo and things like that because we don't know the right quantity. But I didn't want to go there. It was too deep. And I know some people still drink agbo, but they have a lot of consequences.
Thank you
Thanks so much for having that, Ms.
Thank you. That was important. The intersex. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, it's not common, but it does happen. So I wanted to bring us to this. I'm a Yoruba woman, and I love and value the Yoruba culture. I think in the whole world, the Yoruba culture is a unique one, unique, respectful. It's the British said Yoruba language is how they phrase it? That Yoruba language is the best language or maybe the most unique language in the world, something like that. Is the only language that I know that when a certain poem We call it Oriki. It's chanted. It's a poem about, individuals, our origins. When they chant this, there's physiologic swelling, is what I want to call it, of one's head. You actually feel the blood rushing, gurging into your brain, into your brain. And it is not physiologically explainable that just by chanting your roots, you have such physiological response. That's Yoruba culture. It's a deep and rich culture. However, the culture seems to be dying. There are lots of parents, even in Nigeria, who don't speak Yoruba to their children at home. They speak English. These children now speak English with Nigerian accent. It's the weirdest thing to me. And then you speak Yoruba to them, they don't know a word of Yoruba, they don't understand Yoruba. But they speak in English with this accent that you're like, excuse me, I mean, I understand when a child is born here, and that I feel like, I wronged my children in some, in huge ways, because my mom did tell me to speak Yoruba to them at home. And I thought, oh no, when they go to school, I want them to be able to relate and all of that. They understand Yoruba, but they don't speak fluently, and that hurts. Then now, our children are now paying to learn the language. But that's aside from the point I want to make. Now, these children in Nigeria, as opposed to the ones here, I mean, they speak the language of the land with the accent of the land, because that's where they were born and raised. And it's understandable somewhat if they don't speak Yoruba, because their parents, are to blame, or, and not just Yoruba, this goes also for Igbos. Don't let me limit it. Also the Igbos, I see it in the Igbos, and I've had conversation with my friends about that. So Nigeria, they can't speak their native language. They cannot speak Igbo or Yoruba, and I don't know too much about the Hausas. And then in this aspect, and they don't give the respect they need to give to adults. The way we greet, if I see somebody older than me, I will kneel down. That's how we were raised. It's our culture. It's a sign of respect. The men who prostrate. So these things are dying. A lot of things are dying in the culture. And it pains me personally, and I know some other people. I'm wondering how we can revive or revamp those things that we're losing in our culture unnecessarily. So, Brother Chris, you have your hand raised, and I'm glad you're in Nigeria. Kindly unmute and
Yes.
give your 2 cents.
All right. Well, I just wanted to contribute to what you just said, but which is quite profound. In Nigeria, you find out that when you talked about the fading off of values, the Nigerian situation really explains why that could have been, as opposed to other cultures. At the bottom of it, to a large extent, is the economy. Today, Nigeria, the Nigerian family, like we said, we are taught to greet our elders, we are taught to be respectful, we are taught to, be obedient, to our parents. For instance, in those days, in the 80s, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where the system was a bit stabilized, people, our parents could go to work, they earn little, but that little was enough to put them as the breadwinner, as the authority in the house. So when they tell their daughter, don't go out there, or don't go with a guy that has some kind of questionable character, the child listened, because the father was still financially in charge of the family. Was still financially still had a job and everything was just okay. But now the table is turned. Parents are out of work. Fathers are financially helpless. For the children now, because the value in the society has changed, people of Nigeria, I mean, it's been turned upside down. We value what is bad over good. We reward bad behavior over good behavior and punish good behavior. People find money any which way they can. So the girl that would have listened to you in the 90s, 80s, 70s, and so on, cannot listen to you anymore because the father is out of work, can't provide for the family is hungry, but now you have this cocaine guy or this Yahoo guy or this questionable character, who can provide money. So the guy goes after the guy, and of course, against the parents' wish. But because of the helplessness, nobody, in fact, today, what a typical example is, for instance, in some Nigerian cultures, like my state, for instance, it's not hidden that parents support their children to go and do prostitution in Italy, and so on. Even parents even support their children to go and do Yahoo now. That is because of not just the economy, the society, the Nigerian society, for instance, has everything shattered. So in fact, that brings me back to what my contribution earlier about interrogating influences that drive culture. Now, maybe we are not saying it, but what we're seeing in Nigeria is there's a new culture. There's a culture that people are used to now. The child born in the 80s or in the, from 2000 down today, their values are different, So I don't know whether that makes sense so far in this contribution, but that's, I needed to bring that to our attention to show us that most of this culture that we talk about, and for me, they look like, I can say they are pragmatic response to realities humans face at particular periods in time. Sorry, I'm not a medical person, I'm just a layman talking. That's my contribution.
Woo, thank you so much. No, you're not a layman. I know you're in media and you are very, very important in our culture in Nigeria. I know a lot of people don't know you on this platform, but I will seize this opportunity to introduce you that if you're having a do in Nigeria, Chris Otaigbe is the person to contact, to cover with media and put it where it needs to be and where it needs to go. So
Thank you so much.
You know the culture, you know what is going on, and thank you for that enlightenment. It still though does not justify the fact that even our language is not being used in the household from the beginning. Dr. Jagbe asked the question, when does culture begin? Culture starts when a child can understand. When they see, there's a saying that what parents do in moderation, children would do in excess. So the children are watching. They watch the parents. And, that's why when you start family, we should tell the young ones, you need to be careful. Start living your life the way you want them to live, because you can tell them something, what they see you do is really what they're going to do. Whether they want to or not, inadvertently, that's what's going to happen. So culture starts when the children understand their environment, or they start to, or life begins. Life begins culturally when a child begins to understand his or her environment. And so what do you say, Dr. Elisha, to that?
Yeah, that was a really, really good, point. I think for sure, we have to begin laying good examples, like you said, like whatever the kids see us do, that's what they do too. But when it comes to the deep things that you talk about, you spoke first before we had the speaker, and you were talking about you being Yoruba and how you value your culture and what you like about it. Now, those are the kind of things that I generally talk about, that there are some good things in the culture that we must uphold, that we cannot let it slide. And of course, we no matter how strict or how tough a culture is, no matter what culture it is, at my opening statement, I said there's always something good about it. And that is why in our culture, respect is still key, which I would totally uphold. I totally respect. And in American culture too, they respect in their own way. When someone don't kneel down and prostrate, it is not necessarily always respect. However, within that culture, we see it and we regard it that way and we love it that way. However, there are many ways to respect people. Sometimes some people will prostrate, kneel down, and then they will shout you down the next minute. Now, that is a disrespect. I don't care if you kneel down in the morning to greet me, if you can shout me down in public, now that is disrespect. Does it make sense now? So we all kind of weigh it differently. We all see different sides to it. I can see a typical African-American kid, like maybe some Nigerian-American kid, I would say, if they pass right by me and they say, hey, I used to see hey as rude, then I realize it is way better than a kid that passed by and never even opened their mouth to speak. So I begin to value hey too. You see what I'm saying? So definitely some good points made. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you're right. It's a package. Respect is a package.
Yeah, it is.
It is. But we have to find ways of keeping our culture vibrant and alive. There are parts of the culture, like you've talked about, and I wanted to mention, Dr. Jagbe, just 1 second. I wanted to, because I made a note of this, about the cutting of the clitoris. You also alluded before then to individualizing culture, that's probably where we would go, we would end up. And, it dawned on me that you're right, because even people who believed in that culture now in the United States, I'm sure would think twice about it. It's actually illegal here. People will get their permanent residency based on that if they are in danger of being mutilated. It is mutilation, in my opinion. And so for people like us who are here, or people who believed in it before, I never did, and now see differently in this culture, they would individualize that culture, that it is wrong to do that. So thank you for bringing that up, and for, alluding to the fact that as time goes on, we will find our own space. Dr. Jagbe, kindly unmute, sir, and ask your question or give your contribution.
Yeah, just a little contribution. I was just going to say that the inconsistency or the lack of continuity of culture, particularly in the Yoruba group of peoples, is the inconsistency of the oral tradition. So most of the time, from one generation to the other, the traditions are passed down orally. So somebody who is a good historian will tell the story. Somebody will learn the story from them and they pass it on to the next generation. But as we see families sending their children abroad very early, they're not exposed. First of all, like you alluded to, Dr. O, they were not even speaking Yoruba when they were home. So when they're already abroad, they cannot continue with what they do not really know. So I think the oral tradition has not really helped us a lot in the Yoruba culture, except for those who are still kind of attached to that oral tradition where stories and cultural things are being passed down through indoctrination or what I would call, doctrinal teaching culturally. So until that changes, and I don't know that many cultures, even Yoruba, if it's written down, can truly be translated to how it is if it's not heard. Most of the things that we carry on from generation to generation in Yoruba culture has to do with ability to hear and understand what is being done. One example of it is this. When a woman was getting married, at least I remember this when I was in high school, in places like Ogbomoso, Ibadan, Oyo, I don't know of other parts, that the bride, the night before she goes to her husband's house, will go on a pretty much like an outing with all the bridesmaids. They will cover the head, they will go from house to house, and they will be, singing some poetic song that they used to call Rara. The Oyo, Ogbomoso, Ibadan, people will call it Monsurara. Now, even those who live in Nigeria, they don't do that anymore. Not like it was anything bad, but that's part of the evolution of the culture. At some point, it's no longer a very important part of marriage ceremony. But in the 70s, it was very important in that part of the world, Nigeria. So whether it is even naming ceremonies, some other ceremonies, many things have been have evolved, and they don't usually do them the way they used to many years ago.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Chris, kindly.
Yes. Okay, well, I just needed to also drop this. Talking about personalization or individualization of the culture. What comes to my mind now is the K.E.L.I case. I remember because I covered when he died and all of that. I remember during that time, his state was angling to have his body buried in Abeokuta and all of that. And the children it was like a tussle between the states and the children. And I think what I learned from that at the time was that, which was in the words of a friend, that when K.E.L.I was doing his thing, everybody thought he was mad. So the more like they rejected him while he was alive. Now he's dead, he's a superstar, mega star. They now want them to come, bring him to come and bury him. And everybody thought the heavens would fall and all of that. But the children stood their ground and buried him in the Kenya residence. So today I wait for that heaven to fall. And which speaks to the individualization of culture. Brings me again to the reason why. Like in this case, if K.E.L.I had been celebrated by its people while he was alive, it would have been a grand thing for them to take his village, to take him to his village or to stay and get his state burial and all that. But because of their perception of the man when he was alive and how they regarded him and treated him, the children said no. So what am I trying to say? People rebel against culture. And when they rebel, that signals that severance from that culture to create their own away from that. I don't know whether where this fits in, in the discourse, but I do know the idea here is an individualization thing. People individualize, people break away from culture out of convenience, or comfort, or some reason.
That's deep too.
It is deep. I still feel that, please, if you are interested in revamping the good parts of our Nigerian culture, the language, the respect, those types, please reach out to me. I'm very interested. So, Ms. Temi, go ahead, ask it. I'll give your input.
Thank you, Ma. The question is the culture of shouting. We Africans and raising kids in this day and age. Is it still working for the kids? Is it still working? Because you go to any African home and if the mom or the dad is not raising their voice and the kids will be like, Mom, I can hear you. Why are you? So that culture, is it still working in raising kids? Like, I just want to know because
Negative.
It's not. Oh, okay.
I don't think. I think we put unnecessary fear, but let me just leave Dr. Ho to moderate.
Oh, go ahead, please answer the question. Please.
I think honestly, I think it brings you're gonna drag me into mental health. Okay, every other sentence.
Please go ahead. Go for it. That's why we're here.
So now, so this is the deal. Okay. I'm not trying to diagnose anybody, but listen, when we have yelling, it comes in anger. So now, a lot of psychopathologies of people that typically would yell and get angry, if they don't have bipolar, they have intermittent explosive disorder. If they don't have intermittent explosive disorder, they have some maybe OCPD kind of a thing, some personality like a narcissism trait. That is it. And some people, women's side especially now, they are just more emotionally dysregulated. We have something called premenstrual dysphoric disorder that women tend to go through. Their mood is truly up and down. Okay. So many things can contribute to it, although we tie it into culture, and it could be too. I think culturally, many people just tend to yell. I'm one of them too. We just yell. I'm like, Mommy, who are you yelling at? Why are you yelling? You know what I'm saying? I think we feel like if we don't raise our voice, nobody hears. Okay, and I'm not going to downplay that. In some instances, in some situation, you really have to do that. But the frequency of it makes it a psychopathology. You yell on Monday, you yell on Tuesday, you yell on Wednesday, and guess what you're doing? You are eroding the confidence of that kid that you're yelling at unconsciously. And guess what's going to happen? When the kid is 17 and a half, he or she is out of that house. I'm tired of getting yelled at. If not that, they will go talk to someone that will not yell at them, and that person may be a bad influence. So there are many, many downsides of yelling at a kid versus not yelling at the kid. So I don't think it works when we look at the long-term effect of it. If anything, it causes a strain and it diminishes the confidence of that child or creates some sort of anxiety in that kid that it can't
probably causes high blood pressure too.
Definitely, because anxiety will cause, let me tell you, the pathophysiology of anxiety is that it includes excess norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is a catecholamine that would generally raise blood pressure up. So you can be sure that anybody with anxiety definitely have hypertension. So eventually it has a long-term negative effect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent question. Dr. Oduyebo says yelling is an individual personality trait, not culture. So it's an individual personality trait. I believe that. But why is it that we Nigerians talk very loud though? Do you think it could be because of the generators that are used in Nigeria? Because, everybody, even, when people are, you can be in a building with 8 flats or whatever, they have 8 generating systems and there's no electricity. So the thing is so loud, and we all know what loudness do to hearing. Don't you think that has to do with it?
I don't think so. Not everybody had generator, Dr. O. Not everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Generator just started becoming more recent. I never saw a generator in my life when I was in Nigeria. That was like 2002. So it is just now coming on. But it has nothing to do with generator.
Wait a minute. Where were you in 2002? What state?
I was in a Ilorin Kwara State. I was broke.
No wonder. You were not in Lagos.
Exactly.
You were not in Lagos now.
Exactly.
So do you think generator is really part of it though?
Yes.
Oh, really? You think so?
The loud noise, even babies are subjected to this noise. They're also subjected to the pollution. We have work to do. Think about the fumes from the generating system and how people are inhaling that. There's a lot. Look, cancer is on the rise now, in Lagos at least, that I know. It's terrible. Go to Loth. The oncologists are one of the best, if not the best, I don't know, at Loth. They are just amazing. But their waiting areas are packed. They're overwhelmed. They work from morning till dusk. Cancer, cancer, cancer. The fumes, the pollution, the noise pollution, please check it out. When there's noise, it's from childhood that people would have that hearing. They can't hear themselves, so they would talk loud. So I think that may have something to do with that too. Not yelling on the children, that's totally different. You choose to yell at the children when you yell.
I think so.
But I'm talking about conversation, even conversationally. I have 3-4 Nigerians talking in a room, and oh my word, you would think we are fighting. And we're just having conversation. You know, Brother Chris, go ahead, please.
Well, the thing is this, they say if you're in Lagos, if you're not mad, you can't live in Lagos. And it's, yes, now they say you have to be mad to live in Lagos. And it's for real, because when you leave your house, and with all the gentility you can boast now, the minute you get to that road, away from, if your house is so safe anyway, you are likely going to be stopped by area boys. If you are not stopped by area boys, traffic gridlock would catch you under the sun. If traffic gridlock does not get you, you are going to see people fighting. You're going to see all sorts. By the time you even get to your house, just to have some peace, you are going to see some church blaring, church service in your ear, or some mosque blaring. So, and then especially if you now live near markets, shopping mall, your own don. Let me just use Nigerian language. Your own is, your own, because noise from the market, noise from, shops, it's noise everywhere. And so it affects, for me, it affects our psyche. So when you said people, when Nigerians are talking like they are fighting, yes, it's like they are fighting because they are trying to fight off the stress, and their system is so provoked that, sometimes they can't hold themselves. If you're a gentleman, you're wearing suit and tie. When you get out there, you turn to area boy by force. Because every man who thinks he's a gentleman, when he gets out there, the thing is that they have found out that if you pretend to be, if you look like you're weak, Lagosians will take you for granted. So you have to, that's why I said it takes a madman to live in Lagos, a mad person. So if you're trying to show up that, oh, I'm a gentleman, that's why it's Fela song, I not be gentleman at all. If you're trying to be gentleman, they'll take you for a ride in Lagos. And if they do that to you 2 or 3 times, you to remove the coat and tie, you go back like everybody. So that is what is happening to Nigerians in Lagos, especially, because when you say you live in Kwara, anybody who lives outside Lagos, Ogun State, which is even nearby, or your own, life is still peaceful there.
Yeah.
Calm there. But Lagos is hot. In fact, I'm sorry to use the politician. El-Rufai made a joke, when he was still against whatever. He said he wonders how people live sane, remain sane, living in Lagos. That's the governor of Kaduna State. And it's true. And it happened to me personally. I had a personal experience. When I went to UI, having, used to running after bus in Lagos, when I got to UI, that's Ibadan, my first embarrassment was, everybody was waiting at the bus stop for the bus. And I didn't know, I thought I was in Lagos. So as the bus came, I started running. And everybody started looking at me. What is wrong with this man? So that's part culture too, So that's the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, because you're a Lagosian. So coming from a Lagosian, what can I say? I'm a Lagosian too. I think that is why I brought this up, because this is what I see. And having the ability to go between Lagos and Abeokuta in recent times, which is Abeokuta is what, like an hour away from Lagos. The difference is glaring, even with that close proximity. Anyways, Dr. Jagbe, 2 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just going to add this to the fact that Nigerians love to shout when they are discussing. One of the observations I've made, and it's not just cursory, it's not just only on few occasions, almost all the time, everybody wants to talk at the same time. Everybody has a viewpoint and they must make their viewpoint known. And it's at the same time. So the one that is loudest seems to be the one that takes the podium right away, right now. And then when that one dies down, another one picks up. And so everybody seems to know more about any issue, particularly if it is politics. If it's politics and you want to hear Nigerians talk about politics or soccer, they must shout. There is no way. And they must point out to you, you missed it. You didn't even know it. Me, I know it. I know it better than you. So that's always the reason. And the reason, the moment they must prove their point, it's going to be loud noise. Everywhere you turn, it is. Even when you hear your neighbor shouting, you'll be like, are they, like you said, are they fighting? But then the only way you will know that it's something fun is if it's a goal. If it's somebody score a goal and it's their team,
thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Doherty, sir, kindly unmute, sir. Yeah, you're muted.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, good afternoon or good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome from California.
Okay. I think Nigerians have always been loud. Has nothing to do with generator. Even growing up in Lagos when NEPA was actually almost 100%, we've always been loud. I think my theory, it's more of the beer parlor mentality. My theory is this, it's not, I think because Nigeria ethnically, we have over 250, 300 different tribes within the enclave of Nigeria. So I think we have a lot of competition. We're competitive people. So if we are in a group, like in a beer parlor or you're watching game, to be heard, you have to shout, So it's not something that is new. If you go to other African countries like Ghana and even Kenya, you can, or anywhere, you can point out in Nigeria. You even going through airport, I just flew through, I know so many Nigerians that are there because we just can't talk quietly. I think it's more of the fact that we're a very competitive people. We have so many tribes within the Nigeria, and in order to be heard, you just have to shout. That's my theory anyway, and I stand by it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Dr. Booker.
What I wanted to say in terms of culture, the way we grew up, our kids would not. And our kids are experiencing what I call more of a hybrid culture. And then it's even diluted. For instance, my friend's son is married to an Indian. The daughter is married to a Caucasian American guy. So the culture is being diluted as we go along. And my daughter made me read a particular book, and I could send it, The Good Immigrant. And it just talks about the culture. Like, for instance, there was somebody in India from Indian parents who refused to send their kids to a sleepover, the same as I did, because I didn't think it was part of my culture. So this book is interesting to see how a lot of people lots of different parents are fighting with the culture that they grew up with and dealing with these kids who have a mixed culture. But in terms of, when I went to Nigeria, I learned a lot of culture. I never knelt down, I didn't know about that, but I gradually learned it. So it can be learned. And my daughter, who wasn't born in Nigeria, my husband is not, is very much into a Yoruba culture. Eats the food, knows everything knows, even trying to speak Yoruba because they teach it at University of Pennsylvania. So it can be learned, and we can keep the kids within the culture, at least give them some definition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that input. Yes, there's hope. You gave me the hope I needed tonight. So thank you. So now, Vicentia Okran said, we think when we speak English, we are all that because our native language is backward. I appreciate in school, we were taught to take a native language and an international language for the O levels. It is not emphasized now. English is an international language. Therefore, everyone is thinking to have their children learn to pass all exams. No exams is taken in a native language. This can be one reason our native language is at the back burner now. Excellent point. Thank you so much, because that is a place to tackle and to see if we can change things. I do remember that, you know, the culture was like that when I was in school, finishing high school. I actually took Yoruba as my second language. Does anyone else have that experience? Dr. Elisha, you were probably too young. They probably made you do English and English only.
Yes, I did. I did French.
You did French.
I did some French too.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I think that's what we need to go back to. And, you know, we need to effect that somehow. Dr. Oduyebo said, Liberian women take 100% when it comes to yelling during dialogues. Really? You think Liberian women beat Nigerian men? I'd like to experience that. So Dr. Elisha actually commented on the platform that we have been stereotyped as aggressive too. And that is true. I have heard that the Nigerians are aggressive. We're not. Auntie Susan Oshifade said, hi, everyone. Thanks for the wonderful topic and analysis so far. Regarding the loud noise, don't forget we didn't have loudspeakers in schools and teachers had to scream to be heard. Same as mothers bringing up multiple children from relatives. They are bound to talk loud. Dr. Elisha, please comment on that because it's true.
Okay, so what I'm going to buy on right now, I'm going to do it and steal from Ms. Tammy. She made a good point. She said, you know, when we are at work, we don't shout when we speak. We truly don't. Many of us don't. At least there is a way we tame our voice, or it's going to take maybe just one person to correct us and we adjust. So if we can adjust on the job, whatever got us to this point, we can start tracing our steps backwards and normalize our voice and our tone. I think we need to be more mindful. It's called mindfulness training, right? We have to be mindful about what we eat. We're mindful about what we say. We are mindful about what we drink. That is where we're able to maintain a balance. So we can be mindful about our tone too, how we speak. I personally actually have a very high-pitched voice, and I get told a lot, and I'm generally mindful. If I'm in a quiet place, you will see me whispering. That is called mindfulness. So there is no excuse for shouting. In fact, excuse, according to the culture, if we want to bring it down to cultural level, apart from the stereotype that we're aggressive, it's actually, you get a bad look for shouting in a very quiet place. You go to the DMV, everybody's quiet, waiting for their turn, and you are there on the phone. Hey, Risticats, please, please. They will look back at you, and you will never talk on the phone in the public again. So we just have to be mindful of it. That's it.
So we need to be deliberate.
You have to be intentional about it. You have to be intentional. Honestly, it is actually noise. It's totally, I kind of hate it too. And then when I hope I don't shout like that. I'm questioning myself when I hear people shouting around me in public. The Spanish people, especially the Chinese, those ones I put on here blogs. Are you kidding me? but some people are just loud. Some cultures are loud. Some accents are loud too. But we can be mindful about it. So sometimes we can't help it. I think Chinese accent is generally loud. They would talk and some people would think they're actually rude. Honestly, they are not.
Yeah, you're right. And you actually commented on the forum again that in the chat box that like Spanish too, they seem loud.
Spanish.
Yeah, the Spanish. So Sister Susan went further and said that moreover, we lived in open houses where you shout from one house to the other. But when
That's
you
an excuse.
Rome, you do as Romans. So when in US, do as Americans. She said it. She just said what you said. She said it already, that when you are in the US, do as the US. Do as Americans. And that is true. Don't we yell at the balcony from one house to the other? In Nigeria, we do.
That was then though, right? That was then, right?
Oh, no. It's still operating.
Still now?
I did it. This time I went to Nigeria. Oh my gosh. I talked to my neighbors from across the balcony. Hey, how are you? Oh my gosh. I've not seen you in eons. And it was balcony to balcony. So it still happens. Sister Clementina said she lives in Lagos, but that is not the case for her. Her experience was different. So it's probably where in Lagos. I wonder where. Okay. Sister Clementina, you have to unmute and comment and explain where exactly in Lagos. That was no experience. So Sister Vinci said, shouting is in our nature, even on the phone and praying at church as well. Oh my gosh, that is true. That is the way we hear each other. And it makes you the dominant one. Yes, that has been said. Wow, that's a good comment. I have a problem with that church thing. When everybody is shouting, I'm confused. Because I think, prayer should be private and God is not deaf. It doesn't need to be yelled at. But sometimes even the pastors will tell you, louder, come on, shout, louder. And, I just wonder, God is not deaf. Dr. Elisha, please comment on that one, the church culture.
Yeah, the church culture in terms of what? Is it the noise that we just give example of or in general? With church culture, because there's a bunch of culture in church. You know what I mean?
Just the praying culture, like she said, that even praying in church, you see people praying loud.
Yeah. So honestly, I think sometimes a lot of it is hypocrisy. Some is true, some I think is culture, but some is just pure hypocrites. They want to be seen, they want to be noticed, and they've also borrowed that idea from seeing people do it over the years, and some is truly nature for them. So that is totally complicated. It's going to totally be variable depending on the person. Personally, I think prayer should be private. You're talking to God. I don't believe in a lot of times, and I've read some articles also. I was reading about Kanye West the other day. Kanye West happened to be manic when he was going from church to church. I'm not saying that secretly. I know this is going to be published. It's true. He went to Lakewood Church too, but nobody recognized it as mania. And as it was manic too, he was transferring it to his audience and kept saying, shout. So that makes me think, how many churches does that happen? I'm not saying my pastors are manic. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that was one of the many examples that we'll probably have out there. I don't see shouting. I don't think God have any way in the Bible that we need to be shouting and shouting. We can sing praises. We can shout to the Lord, but how much shouting is good? How much shouting is bad? There's got to be a limit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was deep. So in the chat box, you agreed with Sister Temi that we don't shout or speak loud at our places of work. And she guesses we can change, which you have also addressed, in your comment. Sister Clementina says it is culture for most people. They are animated, like the Italians talk with hand gestures. Some parts of Europe, like Russia, etc., their speech is pressured. Chinese, their talking is like quarreling. So, Dr. Elisha, I'm throwing that to you.
That was what I brought when I was okay. I thought it was Miss Tammy that mentioned that. I didn't know it was Clementine. It is totally true. You know, again, the accent may have to come out that way. Does it make sense? Our own accent is more of an alphabet. The Chinese, I don't know anything about Chinese alphabet because it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't even know A or B. I can't separate it. But I know no matter how gentle they are, they come out like that. And that accent also affects their English. For us, we speak in English. We can tame it down. We can tone it down. It's possible. We can tone it down because we're speaking alphabet. Although our Yoruba can be high-pitched, though. For example, I think Igbo, if I have to talk about Nigeria, and I'm sorry, I think there are other cultures among us, so I try to be more culturally sensitive. That's why I bring in American culture. But honestly, when I look at Igbo culture and Yoruba culture, I think Yoruba is more heavy duty than Igbo. I think Igbos are soft-spoken, more soft-spoken. Do you think that, or is just me? Than Yorubas, I guess because of our alphabet. So I don't know if that has a lot to play in that. So Italians that speak with hand gestures, I mean, that is part of the culture. I don't think there is anything wrong with that. Americans do hugs instead. But even though we believe in all these gestures and even hugs and all that, when COVID hit, we all modified it. So why do we have to wait for something to hit to modify our tone too? So that means anything can be changed. If we all didn't hug for like a whole year, we didn't kiss, we didn't touch, we didn't shake hands, oh yeah. So we can also adjust our tone. Thank you.
Thank you. Yorubas and Igbos, I think we're just assertive also.
Yorubas, right?
Yes.
Or Igbos. Igbos are soft, right?
I don't know. Mr. Doherty, what do you think?
My observation, I don't know.
Mr. Doherty, please unmute.
Well, for me, and it's just my own experience, because I was born and grew up in Lagos. But when I went to boarding school, I went to boarding school in Ekiti, which is farther from. Now in Lagos, it's more diverse, you know. Primary school that I went to, everybody was there, not just Yoruba, there are Igbos, there are Hausas, there are Ghanaians, there are people from Togo, Republic. Now, comparing the two cultures, when I saw the Ekiti culture, I went to boarding house there. I think if you look culturally, the Igbos are similar to, not that far from the Ekiti culture, or the Ekiti culture is similar to the Igbos. Maybe that's my own observation, you know, just from my own experience, you know, because there are some words in Yoruba that are the same in Igbo, you know. And then growing up, there are a lot of words that is coined in Lagos that is actually, we think is Yoruba word, but it's not Yoruba word, it's an Hausa word, you know. If you look at something like Wahala, if anybody say Wahala, you think it's Yoruba word, but it's not Yoruba.
Oh, wow.
You know, because we don't have H in Yoruba. You took O levels in Yoruba, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I'm just using my own experience in terms of different cultures in Nigeria.
So are
similarities.
Igbos softer in speech than Yorubas?
Huh.
Are we louder than Igbos? That's what I asked, because I'm like, I don't know. I've seen both animated.
When you say Yoruba, right? Which Yoruba are you referring to? If I bring a Ekiti person to speak, it's going to be different from an Abeokuta. So I don't know. I think they're about the same, to be quite honest with you. Because some Yoruba even speak softer. So it depends on which Yoruba you're talking about.
You know, I have lots of Igbo brothers and sisters, and I don't feel different when I'm in their midst. Like, I feel the same, like when I'm with them, like I'm with the Yorubas.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same speech, in my opinion. Yes, in my opinion, yeah.
I think it's about the same.
Brothers and sisters. I think it's about the same. That was why I asked Mr. Duarte, because I know that he has that broad experience. What about the Ghanaians? Ghanaians are soft-spoken, they tender.
Yeah, their music is more for love music. The Ghanaians.
Yeah.
You know, especially the Ashantis.
Especially the Ashantis. I
Yeah,
thought it was the Ashantis that are strong tribe.
No, well, in terms of the language, if you look at the old high life that we used to listen to in the 60s and 70s, you know, I forgot the something brothers, the music, their music is more suited for singing love song.
I just know that the Kalma people, the Nigerians, and Kenyans too. Kenyans are genteel, you know. Sorry?
They're soft, you're right.
Yes, they're soft, they gentle. So culture, whoa. This has been deep. Okay. Mr. Kim Lawal, what are you trying to say? Iti Mensa?
That is, it's talking about the song.
The high life, Iti Mensa.
Music, the music in Ghana is what's talking.
Sister Clementina says she's Igbo and she thinks the Yoruba language is more dramatic. So explain what you mean by dramatic. Is it louder? Is it more songy-like?
She speaks Yoruba too.
She does, yes. Is it more palatable?
He speaks more Yoruba than Igbo, I think.
Ghanaian high life artist. Okay, that's what she's talking about. Sister Clementina, kindly unmute and educate us. Before I hand over to Dr. Elisha to give us our closing words. Kindly unmute. She's not unmuting.
Okay. Hello, sorry. I was trying to unmute. I'm not too savvy with this high-tech thing. I think just some words in Yoruba, the way you say it, the way your body language, everything speaks together. So the kind of more demonstrative, more, I think, with my Yoruba friends, I think that's what I see that is a difference. Because like if they want to say Cosmo, they use all their energy, but I could say the same thing, and theirs hit harder than mine. That's what I find when I'm, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's a little bit, the language itself is a little bit more dramatic. But having said that, there are loud people on both sides.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's my perception. That they're equally loud, even Yorubas. I mean, I have them sisters and brothers on both sides. And I don't feel any different when I'm with them.
I think it depends on the animation of the moment and what the topic is all about.
Well, sir, ma'am, I think talking about animation, so, the Yorubas and Igbo, there's a difference. Yoruba people, they don't wear anything they say, and most Yoruba people, I don't know about us here, it must be dramatic. Have you done it? Okay, but the Igbo man is not that dramatic. It's going to go like, nah, they just calm down there. No, do you know me, So I think that's the difference. The Yorubas are more dramatic. The Igbos are more, I don't know the word, I think Dr. O can borrow me some English there. But you know, the Igbos are not as dramatic.
So the language, the Igbo language is calmer then. Is it calmer?
It can be.
Yeah. So
I think we might be guilty of generalizing them and stereotyping.
And you know what? Generalizing is the order of the day for this subject. We're talking about most people.
Yeah.
So we're going to generalize because we're talking about what the majority of people are doing. Yeah. Thank you so much for that input. And, you know, that is well taken because you speak Yoruba excellently and you are not Yoruba. But I told you, you adopted. You are Yoruba now.
Thank you.
We adopted you. So, Dr. Elisha, I'm going to give it back to you to, you know, give us your, I have a comment here.
All right.
Okay, so I have a comment that Yoruba is a vocal language. That is right on point. That's the word. And another comment, Felicia Ola says, it depends on the people you are talking to on both sides. That is true too. So over to you for parting words.
All right. Thank you so much for having me again. So I just want to encourage everybody, either from the lip on the plate to, you know, female genital cutting to finger cutting, whatever reason, or from baby tossing, we still have to respect it and not judge it. At the same time, make a very, very informed decision whether I want to participate or not, or whether I want to educate instead of put down whatever culture we encounter. Because as we go from place to place, we're going to encounter different cultures. So again, I believe in individualize it. And then when it comes to our own culture, as we discussed initially, whatever we can do to preserve the good, I will not agree to preserving everything. Whatever we can do to preserve the good part so that we can impart our kid so that their culture will not just fade away. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. You are excellent, and thank you for blessing us again. You know, we needed to talk about our culture. It is timely, and thank you for bringing focus there. We appreciate you. Yesterday was Dr. Ajagbe's birthday. He did not invite us, and to the whatever.
Happy birthday, Dr. Ajagbe.
Happy birthday, sir.
Happy birthday.
Happy
birthday. Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Professor.
Thank you, Dr.
Many more good years to come, sir. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday. When is the party?
I'm waiting for your invitation too.
It's on you now.
Thank you.
More blessings and years to you.